Welcome back to the next episode of the My Story in Motorsport podcast. Today we're speaking to Andreas Beckman, who I've come to know over the last couple of years. I watched his first ever circuit race back in 2018 in TCR UK. And then ever since then, he's gone on this great journey, progressing through the ranks. He won here in England in the TCR UK Championship to come third overall in the standings, then went over to the TCR Europe Championships for 2 seasons, won races there, scored podiums, had 2 great seasons, and for 2021, he's progressing up to the World TCR Championship. This interview was recorded in 2020, so we didn't quite get to that, but still nonetheless some great stories about Andreas' journey through the ranks in just a couple of years. So, Andreas, obviously you've had a very short career in cars, but I'd like to sort of go back to sort of the first memories of motorsport. Do you remember, growing up, who were you supporting, what series you were watching?
Yeah, so when I grew up, my family is quite interested in motorsport. So I started karting when I was 11 years old, but before that I was watching my uncle. He has been driving rally quite much, and we have been supporting him quite much when I was younger, and he's still even today he's still doing rally in the Swedish Championship. So I started watching him, and then I was like maybe around 8-9 years old. Then I started to watch Formula 1 on TV, and I was supporting Kimi Räikkönen because he was Finnish, and that's the closest country to us from Sweden. So I started to watch more and more Formula 1, yeah.
And I'm interested about how you sort of get into karting, because obviously you're from Sweden, and there aren't really, of recent years at least, there aren't too many sort of drivers that have raced in Formula 1 that are Swedish. How did you sort of go about getting into a kart for the first time? Sort of what drew you to go there?
Yeah, it was actually quite funny because it was my mother that she was reading the newspaper, and she found like a thing that you could go to a karting school at our close track, and then she brought both me and Jessica, my sister. Both of us went there, and we just tried it out, and I felt straight away that I really liked the speed and everything like that. So it was a really cool moment, because before that I was not really doing any sports. I tried different sports, but I was not really into other sports, but I really liked karting from the first time. So
yeah, and it's obviously gone quite well. I've got down, obviously you went on to win quite a lot of races and championships, but how does the sort of decision to take it more seriously and start racing, how did you sort of go about that? Because obviously you realise it gets very expensive very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. In the beginning, I was just doing it for fun because, we were starting just in the local championships, and both my parents were supporting me, and we had a nice fun because both me and my sister was racing, and my parents, they were helping as mechanics, and we was doing it by our own. So it was really fun when we was younger to do it all together, and it was really fun. But after that, so the first 2 years we just did it maybe like a hobby level, but after that it was starting to go better and better, and I was getting better and better as well. And then we started to race more in the south of Sweden, because I live in the north, up in the north of Sweden, and we have not so many races and not so many drivers. So we went more and more south, and getting longer and longer car rides to the tracks. But it was getting more and more driving and more races, and also in the south of Sweden it's a much higher level of drivers. So I learned more and more, and it was really a fun times, yeah.
Okay, interesting. And I'm interested about what you're saying about racing in sort of Scandinavia and obviously Sweden, because now you've raced outside of Sweden and Scandinavia, how different is it? Is it a nice atmosphere? I mean, to me, from an outsider, it seems like a great place to sort of, spend with people, and everyone seems friendly.
Yeah, for sure. It's very friendly. I think in Sweden we are quite friendly, and we try to help each other. So it's actually was a very nice time for sure. But the problem with Sweden was when I getting better and better, I wanted to get more and more experience and race against more and more drivers, and then I had to start race more and more international. So after I had did about 5 years in karting in Sweden, after that I decided to go and try to race international, and that's like a different level because it's so many more good drivers. I'm not saying the Swedish drivers are bad, but it's much more good drivers in the same field, so it gets more and more competitive to race against a lot of more good drivers, because in Sweden it was only maybe in the top, it was really high level, but then when you go down it was a very mixed kind of drivers.
So yeah, it's good that you came over, did a couple of different races in different countries. But once you start winning these big races, how did you deal with the pressure when you're still quite young, but still going for these big championships? Did you change your attitude at all?
Yeah, for sure. When you get more and more bigger races, then I had to practice more and more, and had to go much more into the small details, because you can't afford to make a mistake, because I was driving at the world level in the biggest category, so it was a really high level, and the drivers there, they are basically driving karting each day, every day of the week. Yes. For me it was quite difficult, because I had school at the same time, so I was always a bit on the back foot when it came to a race weekend. So it was really good experience, but for sure it was really tough. But I had to really focus on really look on the data and try to analyze my driving and everything, because it was so small details, especially in karting. It's so close racing as well, so it's all about the small details.
That's interesting. You mentioned like school, actually, because that was my next question. Because if you're traveling around Europe, doing karting events, how did you deal with school at that point? Because obviously that's quite a critical time, and you never know what happens in motorsport. Obviously, I guess you do always want that second sort of backup job career.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was. When I was doing and now I don't really know what all schools are called in English, but the school just below university, I was doing during karting, and then it was not really a big problem, because I could still miss a lot of school, but still I could manage. But then when I started in university, it was much more difficult, because it's so much more work and schoolwork you have to do, and it was a bit more difficult, but still it was okay, and I could still combine it with the racing. But yeah, like you said, it's very good to have like a backup plan in case the racing won't go as you plan. And then I thought it's good to start with the school straight away, and just try to do it, because you never know how long racing will keep going. So.
Yeah, exactly. I guess you always want to have that backup just in case. But we'll get onto it in a little bit. But you're doing university now, for example. But So one last question on karting, actually, because it's a question I get asked, but I don't really have much knowledge on the subject. But how sort of expensive does it get as you progress through the ranks? I mean, are you starting to spend the sort of amount you'd spend on a sort of single-seater season? Does it get that crazily expensive?
Yeah, for sure, it gets expensive, and it's a lot depending on which championship you're driving and which kind of team. Because in karting you have both factory teams and you have like the private teams, and both of them are normally quite equal. But it starts to get very expensive when you go on like the world level, and you want, especially on the testing, because testing in karting is much more cheap than the racing cars, but still you have to test much more days, and the traveling gets a lot of expensive. So actually I would say, as I'm living in Sweden, the most expensive thing was the traveling. But for sure it gets expensive, but it's not as expensive as single seaters. It depends what kind of single seaters, but maybe like F4 is quite similar. The top level of karting is more similar to a season of F4 maybe.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, thanks for that, because obviously I get asked that actually quite a lot, and that's considering I don't really do karting. So yeah, that's an interesting one. After karting, you decided to make a bit of a change in the career, really. Well, at least that's what it looks like to me. You started going over to do some Rallycross for a year. I mean, what was the decision like there? Why did you decide to go to Rallycross rather than go to single seaters or touring cars in was it 2017?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was actually quite fun because I did my last season in karting in 2016, and after that I felt I wanted to do a bigger step. And then right then it was getting more and more popular around the world with Rallycross, and we had a big world championship as well as the smaller series. And in Sweden it was getting bigger as well with Rallycross, and I thought that it would be a good step to try, because I wanted to get a new challenge, and I thought Rallycross was on the upgoing, and they were getting more and more fans and more and more media. So I decided to go and try a RX2 car. So it's a supercar lights car. I went for a test in the end of that year, and I really liked it. So after that, the season after, I tried to do a full season, and I did both the ice racing series as well as the world international series, I would say. So it was a very fun year, and for sure it was a really big challenge for me, as I'm not really used to driving on gravel and sliding and going over big jumps. So it was a bit different, but still at the same time I had some experience from tarmac, from karting. So for me it was still not too bad, but for sure it was a very big difference. And also it's much more like shorter races. You have to be really straight away, you have to be on the pace in the start and really drive a maximum attack from the first lap. So it's really different kind of motorsport, but it was really fun year for sure.
And do you sort of look back on that year and have a standout moment? Because obviously there were some good results in there. There wasn't a podium, if I remember correctly, but there were still some really good results, considering that was your first ever season in Rallycross. Did anything stand out?
Yeah, for sure. I had my home race. It was in Sweden. It's the biggest race of the year for many fans. It's a really big fan festival. And then I had a really good race. I actually made the finals. So the top 6 drivers from each event goes to the final, and I made it to the final, and I had a really good race. I was a bit unlucky there because one driver in front of me, he spun in front of me, so I had to really brake, otherwise I would crash. But still I finished 4th, but it was a bit a shame because I thought I could have maybe finished 2nd or 3rd on the podium. So it was but it was a really good race for me, and definitely it was the biggest race for me of the year, because it was the most drivers of the whole year, and I made the best result. So it was a really cool race and a cool event.
It's a great time to obviously put in your best result. What would you say, maybe in reflection, do you think that going to Rallycross for that year was the best choice still? I mean, I know it was only a couple of years ago, but do you think that year in Rallycross has helped you since?
Yeah, it's if you look back now, maybe if you look on my career, it might seem like a strange choice, because I moved to a different thing after that. But still, I would say from my experience, it was a really good choice for me, because I really learned like the basic a car control of the car, because it's so much. You really need to learn a car to slide, and I really learned that in Rallycross to really drive the car with slide and learn the basics of cars. So for me, it was a really good choice, and I'm not regretting it right now, for sure. It was a really good experience, and also for me also, because from karting you have much more longer races, and now in Rallycross you really have to step it up and be straight away on the pace in the first corner. And for me that was a really good experience to bring it to my future career for sure.
And I'm interested to know whether you ever thought about going to do some more Rallycross in 2018, or was it always quite a clear choice to come back to circuit racing?
Yeah, for 2018 it was quite funny also because I did my Rallycross season, and after that I was starting to think maybe that's not the right thing for me because I'm more used to tarmac racing. But then my sister Jessica, she got a test in a Swedish racing car, and then she really enjoyed it, and she told me it's much more like the driving style from go-karts. So then I made the choice to move to TCR for 2018, and I actually did one race in like ice racing during the winter, but after that I made a switch during the spring of 2018 to TCR and circuit racing, and that was really fun because it felt much more like my style of driving. For sure it was still very different from karting as it's much bigger and cars, and you have much different driving style with a front wheel drive car, because in karting we have rear wheel drive, so that was a big change also. But it seemed to be much more better for me because I'm more used to tarmac and circuit racing in general. So for me it was a good choice, I think.
And as you said, you come across to TCR, you came over to the UK Championships, but when did you sort of get into discussions with, was it West Coast Racing? I think that was the name of the team you raced with in the UK. How did you sort of start speaking with them? And then obviously they brought their 3 cars over to England. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, West Coast Racing, they have been really good the last couple of years in the TCR International Series, and it was a Swedish team. So for us it was quite natural to approach them. And also we met the team owner, we met during the year before, because we went to a karting race with Jessica, and then we met the team owner because his daughter was also driving on the same event as Jessica, and then we bought the tires from them. So we actually met them a year before, and we started to make contact during the winter, and they were also planning to go, because our goal was to go for the Scandinavian Touring Car Championship and then do a full season there. But then during the winter we learned about the new TCR UK series, and then we decided to do the first round at Silverstone, maybe most like a test race before the first Scandinavian race. But then after that it went straight away, it went really well. I was second in my first ever race weekend, and then after that I thought maybe we should focus more on the TCR UK and still keep driving during the year to get more track time, because it was a really promising first race for me there, and we really enjoyed the British racing because it's a really good atmosphere during the races and very friendly for us as drivers to race there. So.
I forgot actually that you were only going to do the first round. It's crazy because obviously you went on to do the whole season, finished third in the championship, but we'll speak about that in a minute. Was there any sort of thought about doing any other championship, or was it always quite clear that you wanted to do the UK championship once you realised you wanted to do more rounds?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was. I started with the first round, and then after that we went on to do the races in Sweden, but it was not really going as well because we had different tires in Sweden, and I was struggling. Our team was struggling to find the right setup of the cars, so they were better on the UK tracks. And then after that we said that we focus on TCR UK, but we still do the rest of the Swedish races because we had them. We still planned for them from the beginning, and we kept driving both series. But then in the end of the year, we also made a guest appearance in the last round of the TCR Europe series in Barcelona, and that was mainly just to test my skills against the more European drivers, and it was a really big field with over 30 drivers, because in the UK it was mainly like 10-15 drivers, and Europe is much more drivers, and the level is really high there as well. So
I'm interested to know actually in this sort of transition. Did it take long to sort of learn track racing again after spending a year, on dirt and gravel, or was it all quite natural after so many years of karting?
Yeah, it was actually taking some time to get used to, but it was mainly because for me the main difference was to learn front wheel drive and also to learn like the car in general, because it's so much things more on a race car compared to a kart, and then you only have the steering wheel and the pedals, and that's it almost. And then you come to a car and you have dampers, you have different things. So it's much more things that is working on the race car. So that was my main challenge, was to learn the car racing and to do a good lap in qualifying, and also in the race not to drive too aggressive, and learn the basics of car racing. I learned, but the speed was there from the beginning, I would say, and but it was mainly during the year it was more to learn about the car itself and how racing works, and also the race tracks. It was a big challenge for me, because for me all tracks was new. Wherever I went, the tracks was new, and especially in Sweden they have raced on the same tracks for almost 20 years, and the drivers are really experienced. So it was a big challenge for me to drive in car racing for sure.
And obviously you had a win in your first season, TCR UK. Strangely, that came in the one event where you weren't driving the Volkswagen. Is that a little bit annoying, considering obviously you spent so much time in the Volkswagen?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a really good race. Yeah, for sure, the Volkswagen. But the problem with the Volkswagen during that year also was that we always got the maximum balance, because we was doing so well. And then also in the Croft, yeah, for sure, the car was lighter, but still at the same time I was not so much lighter than anyone else. And I think also the qualifying there was really tricky, and I got a really good lap, because it was like a drying track during qualifying, and the last lap you had slick tires, but still it was some wet patches on the tracks. So it was really strange qualifying that. It made me my first pole, so it was a really good race weekend. But yeah, it was not all about the car for sure, but still I think I had a really good race in general, just a good weekend.
Yeah, it was really nice to see you on the top step of the podium, obviously after quite a few podiums before that. I'd just like a quick mention of Dan Lloyd, if that's right, because obviously he worked with you and Jessica in your first season. How important do you think maybe he was in just sort of getting you, those little bits of information throughout the year?
Yeah, for sure. Dan was a really big help for us, because we was so new to everything in car racing. And he had been driving for a long time in car racing in both GT cars and touring cars and stuff like that. So he was really experienced, and he gave us a lot of tips, and he shared his thoughts with us, and it was really good, a really good driver lineup for that year, and we really learned a lot from him. So it was we are really thankful for his support.
And it's interesting, obviously, we look to the 2019 results and you ended up beating him, so maybe he helped you too much. But yeah, so what was the process like to coming to race into Europe into 2019? Because obviously you raced around the world when in Rallycross, but then going to the UK and Sweden, it was all sort of in one country. So was it quite a big step to go back sort of many countries around the world, or did you just sort of find that process quite natural now?
Yeah, for sure, it was a big step up, I would say, because now we have to race all around Europe, and still the tracks was new for me. But we focused that year to do instead of race more like we did the year before. We raced in 2 different series. We just raced in one series, and we focused on doing some more testing during the winter, and it helped us to both learn the new car as well as the new tracks. And it was a really good year for sure in my first year in European racing, and it was much more better than I was expecting.
And also, obviously, you became a Hyundai young driver, and considering they're doing a lot of stuff in the world of motorsport right now, I guess that's such an amazing feeling to be announced as one of the few young drivers that they have within their sort of company.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really big honor to be part of their program. It's so big opportunity for me because it's one of the biggest car manufacturers now in the world, and they have really big programs now in both the rally and racing. So it was really cool to be part of their young driver lineup for sure.
And did you feel much pressure, obviously getting that deal, and the season was going really well, you were scoring points in pretty much every single race, and then obviously it builds up to a good result towards the end of the year? How did you deal with that? Because obviously you came from the UK Championship, which was still, in fairness, quite small, and then you go to Europe and you're beating so many of these drivers week in, week out, and go on to finish right near the top of the championship. How did you cope with that?
Yeah, for sure, it was really difficult mentally because they have so much more racing experience than me in race cars, and I'm still quite new. I was only in my second year of car racing, so that they definitely they had more experience and things like that. But still I felt I could push through during the year, and especially in the end of the year, I really started to get better and better results and stuff like that. So it was a really tough year for me, but it went better and better during the year.
So you look back at your rookie season in Europe, I'd say pretty amazing, to be perfectly honest. I mean, you're racing against people that have way more experience than you, and you're in a new car, new team. I was really, really impressed. But what would you say were the key factors for you to sort of putting that all together? Did you work a lot harder in the sort of winter of 2019 to sort of prepare yourself differently? Yeah,
for sure. I was doing more testing than before, but still I felt it was a bit of combination of all parts, because you had my car. It was really good for that year. We had a new car. It was really good. And also the team, it was really good team as well, and they were really good at getting the right setup for the car, and also it was a bit of me also getting better as a driver. So it was a really good year, and it was a bit of a mix of all these three things together gave it a really good result.
And obviously it was a really competitive field, but obviously you got multiple podiums, you got your victory in Spain. I guess that's the standout moment. I guess I don't really need to say that. Would you say that?
Yeah, for sure, my victory in Spain, but the season was actually quite strange because I had my first win in Oschersleben, but then I got disqualified, and then in Barcelona, then I finished second over the line, but the guy in first, he got the penalty, so I got my trophy in the paddock afterwards. So it was still a quite weird feeling, but yeah, for sure, Barcelona, it was the main big point of the year, and it was really good because in both Oschersleben and Barcelona I was really fast in both the dry and also wet qualifying in Barcelona. Still I had pole there, so it was two poles in a row. So it was a really good final part of the year, and it was fun also to get my first win.
And would you assess your rookie season in Europe fondly, or are there still some moments that annoyed you that you didn't quite perfect, or did you think it all went quite well?
Yeah, for sure. In the first part of the season, I made some mistakes myself, and also especially the first round in Hungaroring, I had a really good qualifying. I qualified second, and then in the first race I messed up a little bit in the first lap and crashed with another driver. And after that, I had two races there, which was around top 10, but I could have finished on a podium maybe in the first race there. So there I lost some points in Hungaroring, and also in the second and third round as well. I got a podium in Spa, but then the qualifying was quite bad, so the first race was not as good. So it was some small parts in the first part of the season, but in the final part of the year it was some really good races, and in both qualifying and racing.
Yeah, as you say, it was. I think that it was a really good rookie season, so I think you can be very proud of yourself. I've got a interesting question, because obviously your whole career, or a lot of your career, you've been racing with Jessica. How is that a little bit strange? Doing everything together. I mean, I guess it's really good to keep the family together. I guess it's a really great team dynamic. But I guess you're one of maybe a few people around the world that do it like this. Working sort of so closely with a family member.
Yeah, it's quite natural for us, because we have been racing together all our lives almost since we were 10 years old, and for us it's quite natural, because we think it like this, that the more we share with each other, the more of us can get better together, and we learn together, because if she finds a corner is better this way, then I try it, and both of us can get better. So for us it's very good to work together, and we are, like I said, it's really good also because we keep the family together and we can do it together as a family. It's really fun. So yeah, it has worked out great so far.
So obviously throughout all of this, your family have been very supportive, and that's really great to see. I think I met your dad at Donington. I think he was in the garage with us. So I think that was really nice to see. He was so supportive and having a good time as well. So how important have they been in just sort of this whole journey, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. My family has been very important, because they have supported me a lot, and without them, for sure, I would not be racing today, because they have been so supportive. But I think they have also enjoyed it together with us. So it's a really good family together, and we are really, we are working well together.
I'm interested about being you're a racing driver. So what are the good points about a sim? What are the bad points? I mean, what can you learn from it, and what is sort of lacking? Is it sort of the feel of the car?
It's actually, a sim is a very good tool, especially for learning a new track, because we use sims a lot to learn when going to a new track in real life, because we only have, during a race weekend, we only have 2 practice sessions, and that's it. And then it's really good to run in a simulator to learn a track before a race. But yeah, it's a really good tool, and especially it's good because you can get a feeling of where is the braking points, and where do I shift down and stuff like that. So it's a really good tool, and I would say today's simulators it's also quite realistic as well. So the tracks are laser scanned, and it gets more and more like real life. So that's a really good thing. I think it's just the thing you're still missing is the G-forces in the car, and that's the only thing. But both the steering wheels and pedals are very good and gets a good feedback. So it's still okay, I would say.
So yeah, I'm very interested to see how the next couple of years goes for you. Obviously, there's a lot of potential here. What would you say for you is the ultimate goal? Would it be to race in the World TCR Championship, or would you like to go on to race in GTs, or is there any big career milestone that you want to tick off before you stop racing?
Yeah, right now my goal is to reach a WTCR, so that's the World Touring Car Championship. That's my goal right now, and that's what I'm striving for now. But after that, I don't really know. My goal is first to reach WTCR, and I'm sure you want to win it as well. But my long-term goal is to become a professional racing driver, and that's what I'm striving for. And right now I'm very close, but it will be cool to do this as my full-time job. Will be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you've been working on it for a number of years now, so the results are coming. It's all looking really good. That was my last question. It's obviously very interesting to see how your career's been going over the last couple of years. It's great to follow it, and yeah, thanks for your time once again. And yeah, stay safe and best of luck for when we do get racing again.
Yeah, thank you for taking your time, and thank you.